Welcome to a new episode of Melt. I'm Ritvika Gupta. This week, we are taking a look at the Indian auto sector, one that is beginning to see signs of revived demand after months of lockdown growth. How has consumer behavior in this sector changed as an impact of the lockdown, and what are automakers doing to meet the changing demands? Anant Rangaswami, editor of Melt, finds out today in a conversation with Shashank Srivastava, Executive Director, Sales and Marketing, Maruti Suzuki India. Let's get ready to melt with Shashank Srivastava.
Morning, Mr. Srivastava.
Good morning.
So I want to ask you, how has your role changed if you try to compare the pre-COVID role that you were doing and the the current role, in the sense, how do you spend your time differently? Do you spend more time on research? Do you spend more time on consumer understanding compared to what you were doing, say, in February 2020?
Thank you, first of all, for having me. As far as the role is concerned, while the pillars of marketing remain the same, however, as you just pointed out, the role as regards consumer, the time spent on consumer understanding and consumer research is actually greatly increased. And I'll give you a reason for that, because we find that pre-COVID and post-COVID, the consumer preferences and the consumer behavior itself has undergone a fundamental change as far as auto buying is concerned. So both in terms of not only the choice of products, but also choice of brands, choice of place and the process of car buying, the purchase cycle itself, and also, by the way, the media habits, which means that the platform of media itself has changed. So before we go headlong into marketing our products in a different way to the consumer, it's very essential that we understand the consumers' changed preferences, their changed behavior. And I think a lot of time has been spent by our team into basic research on consumer behavior changes. That, I think, is a fundamental difference between what we did pre-COVID and post-COVID.
So if I ask you to sort of encapsulate the changes in the consumer, the 3-4 biggest changes in your view, which impacts your business, what would those 3-4 changes be?
Yeah, so as far as auto industry is concerned, auto is a product which is in economic terms, it is called a discretionary product. In other words, it's not essential to buy, but it is bought with a greater aspiration, especially in India. And what we find fundamental change in the consumer mindset is that from a conspicuous consumption, the consumer has actually shifted to a conscious spending. So what was meant for largely for status and aspiration today is more about functionality and rational purchase. We find that the first time buyers, where the buying is actually more functionality based, has seen a big jump, almost a 5% increase in terms of the percentage of people buying. So in auto industry, just for information, we have first time buyers, we have replacement buying, which means the people sell their old car and buy new ones, or additional car buying, which means you buy any additional car, although you may be owning a car. So let's say a second car or a third car. So what we find is the first two, which is the first time buyers and also the additional car buying has increased, whereas the replacement car buying decreased because people are, they are taking their vehicles, they're not selling their old vehicles and keeping them for a longer time. That's the first change which we observe. And of course, there are other changes which you find. For example, the digital platform has increased dramatically in terms of the buying process itself. People are preferring to use digital means rather than using the traditional visits to the dealership. As a result, digital inquiries have gone up substantially. People are spending more time on social media, and that brings an entirely new set of marketing challenges. So I think some of these have become. And one final thing which has really brought about a big change in consumer behavior. Now, trust in a brand is essential. So previously, products or pricing could be a differentiator as far as marketing, but today I think trust is the new currency for brand differentiation, especially when people, you need to convey to the people the confidence that what you are doing is good for them, not only socially but also in terms of health and precautions, and the SOPs which you make at the dealerships, they have to conform to a very high standards of safety, which is what the consumers want.
So, to build on your last sentence, your last point, uh, test drives are a very important element, have been a very important element in final decision making and which car to buy.
Yeah,
Now, test driving has been a challenge during the entire pandemic.
yeah.
So, how you dealt with that in the sense of going more digital in your test buying or more digital in your communication? How do consumers do their test driving, or
Yeah.
what do they replace it with?
Yeah. So the point I was actually making was trust being the new brand differentiator. And of course, testing the product is one of the parts of that trust. So, yeah, as you rightly pointed out, test drive is a very essential part of car buying and gives a lot of confidence to consumers because it's a high value purchase, especially in India. Probably it's the second largest purchase you make in your lifetime. What we found was that while test drive and the actual delivery, still people are visiting the showrooms, but the process of discovery about the product, the comparison, the reviews, the peer, and the other, the thoughts of of other users, that is being done largely digitally. So we find that almost 94% of the buyers are actually starting online in their purchase of cars, and about 48% of them have actually decided which brand to buy even before they walk into the showroom, and that has been enabled because of the large push of online purchase. As far as the purchase cycle is concerned, there's a lot of online activity, and however, we do ensure test drives which are very clean, in the sense that you have a proper sanitization and all that factors which are relating to the COVID related safety has to be followed. And we have found that consumers have reacted very positively, especially both to the digital platform in which we have tried to build part of the consumers' discovery of the product. So much of the information about the product, including 3D projections, including 360-degree view of the product, and so on and so forth, even how it feels when you sit inside the car, is also more or less digitized. But yes, we do find that many consumers still prefer to actually drive the car, as also when they take the delivery, they want to be in the showroom. That part apart, that portion apart, which is I think two parts of the, we have 26 touch points of the consumer buying in the entire auto buying process. So apart from those two touch points, the rest of all are now more or less digitalized.
With the change in the consumer habit in terms of media consumption, tell me how you have changed your media buying, media placement in principle. I'm not talking about, I don't want percentages, but in
Yeah.
principle, how have you changed that during the last 6-7 months?
Yeah, so the role of media is obviously when we are placing our ads or our communication in the media, we have to follow the media habits of the consumers. And that's what we have been trying to do. So you would see that there has been a drop in consumption of OH during the lockdown period. Of course, it's coming up again. There was a drop in print media. However, there was an increase in television and also a huge increase in the digital media consumption, especially social media. So we have, of course, followed that. So while you said you won't be interested in the percentages, but I would nevertheless like to say that digital has seen a large increase in terms of, it's like almost 33-35% of our spends on the media now in the digital world, including the always on social media and so on and so forth. But also this was just regarding the choice of the medium, but also the one important thing is the timing or even the genre in which you say, for example, in television we were earlier doing a lot of sports because that's got a high affinity with respect to our type of consumer of auto. But we found that there was no live sport in this period. Live sport just started a month or so back with the IPL and some of the other actions in football. But there we found that we had to shift to GC and a lot of news genre got a big jump, and we accordingly shifted. And interestingly, during the pandemic and then the lockdown period, there was a shift in the prime time itself. So prime time, in fact, you will be surprised. I was actually 11 o'clock in the morning, rather than we are used to those 9 o'clocks in the evening types, which was also it was quite high as far as viewership is concerned. But we found a big bump in the timing as regard the morning 11 o'clock onward. So you need to be obviously aware of those habits which of media which consumers are following, which is how you make your plans in the media. But those are a couple of things which we saw were very prominent in our entire media plan.
Now, during this pandemic, Maruti has not only launched new products, they've also launched new services. Now,
Yeah.
with this, first tell me about the products and services. Next, I'll come to the challenges of creating communication during the pandemic.
Yeah.
Under lockdown, you have to talk to communication partners and still get new communication out. So this
Yes.
is a subset of the earlier question.
Yes.
What gave you
Yes.
the courage to launch new products, new services, and then how did you create the communication for that?
Yeah. So in automobile, of course, the products are planned much in advance.
Sure.
Actually, anywhere between 38 months to 46 months in advance. So products are planned for a long term as well. It's not as if the product is there only for a year. Some products life cycle, especially for brands, may be actually quite a large number of years. So only thing was how to launch became the issue. So we recently launched, for example, the S Cross, which is in the mid SUV segment. Now, in mid SUV segment is a very growing segment, and especially even in this year, we have seen a lot of competition launches also in that category. So it was very important not to postpone that launch, and we did not, because it's an important segment and it's very crucial for our market shares as far as the overall market is concerned as well. So we did launch on the digital platform. It was a pure digital launch. And to our great pleasant surprise, we saw a huge traction, a large number of consumers who would otherwise have not seen the launch, which we used to reserve for the media, for a specific set of media, where there was a live launch on the physical launch, which this time we did entirely on the digital means, and it was a great experience. Actually, we even our dealer conference, which is normally done in a physical way at some exterior location, we normally convey our plans for the year, as also we convey our product launches to them in that forum. Normally, there are about 700-800 people who join that conference physically. This time, since the launch was done and since the conference was done entirely on the digital platform, we could have more than 8,000 people who could view the conference, and we could therefore convey our plans to a much larger group within our channel partners. So I think that was an extremely positive thing of utilizing the digital platform. That was one aspect. The other thing which you asked was about services. And two things I would especially like to mention here regarding services launches. One was our e-finance marketplace, which, as you know, financing is in our in auto retail, about 80% of the retails happen through financing. Of course, it helps retain the consumer, the inquiries better, and convert consumer inquiries into sales much better if you integrate your financing portion of the retail process into your own digital platform. And that's what we did. Extremely positive response. It's the first time in the industry that anybody has done that. And we are very proud that which was initially started as a pilot project has actually become really big, and we have launched it across the country. Second is the subscription service. And this is also something which goes back to the first question which was asked, which is regarding the change in consumer behavior. So consumer buying itself now has changed. So people are moving away from shared mobility and public transport towards the more personal transport, which is also giving a push up to the demand for the cars, especially at the lower end of the spectrum. As I said, additional car buying and first-time car buying is increasing. So I think what really consumers indicated was they were also looking for some of them in light of the pandemic situation. They were wanting personal transport, but were not willing to buy the asset or commit to financing for a long period of time. Financing the asset for cars is actually about 4 to 5 years period, and they didn't want to commit that sort of money. So they wanted an asset light purchase, which means they wanted to use the car, but they don't want to purchase the car or even finance it. Sometimes, of course, for reasons they don't have that finance, but also because there is a fundamental change in the mindset towards renting or towards asset, what we call asset light purchase. And subscription, therefore, is the service which we offered. And we started with the white plate subscription in Gurgaon and in NCR and Bangalore, and subsequently moved also to the black plate subscription for Hyderabad, Pune. And now we have launched it across most cities in the country, and which is also getting extremely good traction.
If you can just help our viewer understand what is subscription, how is it different from lease, finance, or so? What is subscription?
Yeah, so subscription is like lease, but lease is for a long period. Subscription could be for periods as little as 6 months to 2 years. So suppose let's say I am a consultant and I have to do a project in, let's say, Mumbai for 2 years. I'm in Delhi. I get transferred to Mumbai. I go to the clients because I have to meet the client very often. I want a car for my local travel, etc. But I don't want to purchase it because I know after 2 years I'm going to go back to Delhi, or for that matter, any transferable job. I don't want to buy the car. However, I want to own it. I want to use it. Subscription is a good service because you can contact the leasing company, the subscriber company, and they can just offer you the car of your choice, and you make a monthly payment. You don't have the hassle of insurance. You don't have to do financing. You don't have to even worry about disposing it off after, as a used car later. This is a new service. It's actually new in the world. New in the world, it means it was started in Europe and US about 3 years back, but it's just come to India about 6-7 months back. So that is what is the new trend, especially among some class of buyers, which I indicated. So that was the service which we offered, and pandemic accelerated that. We were planning earlier also, but pandemic seems to have accelerated that change as far as the consumer buying mindset is concerned.
And finally, I come to the advertising, creating of the communication.
Yes.
So during the pandemic, how did you deal with the challenge of creating, whether it's a PVC or a JPEG or updates for your Facebook or Instagram? How did you deal with that? Because you're sitting isolated from your teams.
Key thing which we understood as far as the what of communication was that the consumer was looking for a confident. As I said, now trust is the new currency for brand differentiation. The trust has to be built in the consumer, and we thought that the best way of building that trust is to give a positive message, to build hope rather than despair, to give a a feeling of positivity in an otherwise slightly slightly bad scenario, you can say. So the messages initially were about taking care of your health, how Maruti Suzuki is helping in terms of our the care which we are showing for our employees, our customers, our own channel partners, safety being the paramount of paramount importance. So we did a lot of those short videos on social media, whether it was Facebook or Instagram or other handles. When post lockdown, we did give confidence to the consumer in terms of communication by communicating to them the really stringent SOPs which we have at the dealership as regards safety. So whether it was social distancing or sanitizing or temperature measurement and so on and so forth. So we went beyond what was prescribed by the government, and we had to convey this to the consumers to enable them to have the confidence of buying the car. Thirdly, of course, we convey to them how our digital platforms have become very robust and we encourage consumers to actually use our digital platform, and they have done. Our in digital inquiries have gone up from about 12-13% to almost 40% now. And we started this concept of hyper local, which was there earlier, but it seems to have accelerated post the pandemic. And as I said, we have, in terms of media choices and also the genre choices, we have made those changes in line with the changes in consumer behavior and consumer usage post the pandemic.
Right. Fantastic. So I hope, I mean, lots of change. We don't know how much is permanent, how much is temporary. So maybe 6 months from now, we need to interview you again to see what was temporary and what was permanent.
Yes.
We'll understand
Yes.
that better.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Shashank.
Thank you very much.
It's a wonderful conversation. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you so much.
And that was Shashank Srivastava sharing how Maruti Suzuki is adapting to changing customer requirements and creating communication that generates greater consumer trust. Now here's presenting the Melt cheat sheet. Time spent on consumer understanding and research has increased among automakers. More consumers today are buying vehicles online. Trust is a top buying consideration among consumers in the auto sector. The pandemic has pushed automakers into digital transformation and the way they deliver value to customers. With that, it's a wrap on this episode of Melt. Don't forget to follow us on social media. Our handle is Ready to Melt. And stay connected with our daily Melt update on our website, readytomelt.com. I'll see you next week, same time, same place. Goodbye.